This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. And now, here's your host, Itamar Shafir.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we talk with successful marketing experts about ways to build and grow your digital marketing agency. My guest today is the co-host of Sharkpreneur podcast with Shark Tank's Kevin Harrington, that was named one of the top 10 podcasts to listen to by Nasdaq. He's a 7-time best-selling author. He's the only person to be nominated 3 times for the GKIC Dan Kennedy Master of the Year Award, and the founder of the direct response marketing firm, Market Domination. I'm excited to say hello to Mr. Seth Greene. Hi, Seth.
Hi, Itamar. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to be on the show.
So, Seth, you and I know each other a little bit, and I just want to say that Seth is doing amazing work, which he's going to talk to us about, and Umbrella is also a client of his agency, just so the listeners know. But Seth, tell us a little bit about, how you got into helping businesses grow, and maybe specifically with podcasts.
Sure. And full transparency, I am also a client of yours. So our agency is an Umbrella agency as well. So the love goes back both ways. So how I got started as an agency, I started out as a college financial aid planner, helping parents cut the cost of college tuition, $19,077 a year. And I started out at a Fortune 500 company, making 300 cold calls a day, interrupting strangers, asking for money. And I hated it, the cold calling part, absolutely hated it. So I had the good fortune to find and meet legendary marketing guru Dan Kennedy. I begged my wife for 30 days in a row to let me go borrow more than our mortgage to work with Dan, which on day 31, thankfully she said yes. In 2 years of working with Dan, I was in the top 30 financial advisors nationwide for opening new accounts at a Fortune 500 company of almost 7,000 advisors. So it worked really, really well. And that's an understatement. And then I started getting written about in industry trade journals. And this was decades ago, before the internet, before social media, before email. It was all direct mail and print advertising. And so my phone started ringing with financial advisors going, how do I do what you did? And I faxed Dan and said, using one of my emergency fax credits, and said, Dan, what do I do? And Dan said, you start a marketing company and do it for them. And that was almost 14 years ago. I started Market Domination LLC.com. It started out as me and one financial advisor I was willing to let try my stuff. And since then, over the last 14 years, we now have an amazing team of 44 employees. We've served thousands of clients. We've spread out beyond financial services to about 63 different industries. It's been an amazing roller coaster ride. And a number of years ago, there's a whole nother story about how we started specifically helping agency owners because of the mess I created in my own firm.
So there's a lot to talk about helping our listeners today and helping them help their clients. And I want to talk specifically about podcasts and about books, because I know you're doing that a lot. But before that, you mentioned something about starting in a specific niche, and then Dan Kennedy helping you in that specific niche. And something that comes a lot in the podcast is, should young agencies start niche or not? And I hear different opinions. What do you think?
When I started, in addition to starting in financial services, because it's what I knew and I had a demand for it that I didn't intentionally create, I started off niche, but also the second client we had was a business owner. He was an executive director of a large automobile membership organization. If I told you what it was, it's a couple letters in the name, you would all know who it is. But he had gotten my marketing as a business owner to talk about investing in college financial planning. And he called me and he said, listen, my brother-in-law is my advisor. I can't use you, but your marketing is better than what we've got. Can we talk about that? And I said, I don't know. How big a check can you write? And I was 20 something at the time. I should not have answered with that question. I wouldn't now, but I said, how big a check can you write? And he said, well, my budget is X. And I said, we can talk about that. I'll find a way. So at the beginning, I took even though I was trying to niche, I took every client who could write a mirror and who could fog a mirror and write a check.
Right.
Because you got to keep the lights on. If I could go back in time, I would have been more focused. I would have turned away. I would have referred everyone who wasn't in financial services out and gotten an affiliate commission somewhere. So I would have gotten some money. But I think branching out too fast got us kind of scattered. And in the beginning, it was just me. I had no employees for years. I was doing it all myself. And while the principles that you teach of direct response marketing apply to any business, I already spoke financial advisor. I already spoke investments in college planning because I had done it for so long. I didn't speak roadside assistance. I didn't speak aftermarket high performance Corvette brakes, which we worked on that company. We had a company that did that. Every client I took, I had to learn a new language, learn what the customer's pain points were, go through the whole process all over again. Had we stayed in financial services and focused more on that, we probably could have grown faster, better, more efficiently than taking just anybody.
That's an excellent point. And you had a lot of experience coming from financial advising. And what if somebody doesn't have so much experience? A younger person maybe, or yeah.
So I did that when we started going into new niches too soon. I had no experience in that niche, right? I had only met, so I had to convince the client, no, even though I've been marketing financial services for all this time, the principles are the same. It'll be fine. It'll work. And I ended up starting another company under a separate brand, which was literally brand new, taking on clients in a different niche that I had no experience in. So I kind of borrowed Affinity. One of my strategies was to go find other people in the niche who had done what I wanted to do, interview them. Back then it wasn't a podcast because podcasts didn't exist, but interview them, take what I learned, and then quote unquote resell. Hey, I've gotten some experience by interviewing 10 or 20 people in this niche. I now know, instead of doing the research myself, I've interviewed these people who have the decades of experience. So now fast forward, I've turned decades into days, as Tony Robbins says. So I've learned these things, and I would put out a report on that and say, here's what I learned interviewing these people. And other people in that niche would raise their hand and go, oh yeah, that's right. That's our niche's pain points. That's our problem as vendors, as business owners in that niche. You seem to know what you're talking about. I want some help.
Right. Very good.
But you can borrow Affinity.
So talking about borrowing Affinity, if we're already going into interviews, when and what period did you go into podcasts and start focusing on that?
So the service wasn't created that we offer our Dream 50 program that you are a part of. I didn't create it as a podcast because I created it before podcasts existed. I was trying to solve a different problem. The problem I was trying to solve was my financial advisors wanted referrals from accountants and attorneys. And there are dozens of products, courses, and systems in the financial services industry that purport to do that. Most of them don't work because I tried them all. I bought them and said, I'll just use this and then I'll resell it when it works. And I failed miserably many times. And I said, there's got to be a better way. And again, it's in a local little market, somebody's town, somebody's village, somebody's city. So I said, I need a way to get referrals. I started interviewing people. Again, there was no podcast. It was literally a Staples bought Office Depot voice recorder for $20 sitting on their desk that I put on their desk. It was awful. The sound quality was awful. But I was asking questions, trying to figure out what the issues were and why they wouldn't refer. And when I figured the system out, we started doing it. I did it for myself. It landed me another wave of publicity in financial services because I got $100 million pension fund off of an interview. And all of a sudden I said, this might work. So I started doing it for other financial advisors that we were serving. I said, hey, you want to test this? And if it doesn't work, I'll give you your money back. And then it worked. And I said, awesome. Now we're going to charge everybody else more because we proved that it worked. So it started out as physical in-person interviews. And then when podcasting started becoming big, we said, wait a second, instead of doing 10 to 12 interviews, turning it into a book and using that as our referral tool, which works, what if we aired the same interviews as a podcast, repurpose the content? Now, instead of 12 interviews in one book, I can do like 50 interviews, one a week, all year long. Now they've essentially got a radio show for no cost of radio airtime. And we now have social media, we now have email. All of a sudden, there's a dozen different ways to repurpose that same interview to generate more traffic and more leads and more referrals in ways that we couldn't do before.
And the idea of the interview back then was, is it like the one that you're using today? Is it the during 50 tactic, meaning you get into a source of influence to kind of look for people that serve to the client base that you're looking for?
It was the same strategy in terms of you want to interview the influencers who can send you who you want. So the accountant the estate planning attorney has high net worth estate planning clients who would be great clients for a financial advisor. But if I walk in the door cold and say, hey, can you refer me all your clients? Here's my business card. I don't know you. You're going to get thrown out. I had to come up with a way to, in a non-threatening, non-salesy way, start and build a relationship of trust and confidence to the point where that estate planning attorney said, yes, I will. I love you now. You're awesome. Thank you so much for all you're doing for me. I will now promote you to my clients. And the in-person interview, it started out as, and then evolved into a podcast. It's still, years later, the absolute best way I've ever found to start a relationship in such a way that the person does not perceive you as selling something or wanting anything. And at the end of it, I mean, I did 3 yesterday. I know you're doing them every week. I did 3 yesterday. At the end of every single interview, the person said, what can I do for you? And I said, just wait. Nothing yet. Just share the show when it airs, because I know there is a multi-step direct mail campaign coming that is going to get them to go, oh my God, no, please let me help you. And then I will happily take them up on their offer to share and promote me to their tribe or our clients, whether it's a webinar or a straight referral or a lead magnet or whatever.
Yeah. So I think it's a great way, the idea, the concept of, in a non-threatening way, attracting somebody that can get you in front of a lot of potential clients. So let's take that to the people that are listening now to the podcast, right? Which are mostly agency owners and people who want to start an agency. How would they utilize that for themselves?
Absolutely. And I've done it on purpose. I've started over and started a new company multiple times, a new agency multiple times in a niche I had no experience in. And I didn't put any of my previous experience in the marketing or the website to see if it would work from scratch. And it did. And we've also done it for our clients who are agency owners. So if you're an agency owner already, and I'm hoping you've got some type of target market or niche that you're working, you would start by building a wish list. Who is your dream 50? Who are the 50 micro influencers in your market? You don't need Joe Rogan. He's not going to email 10 million people about you. You don't need that. I have 4 shows now because this works so well in different industries. And I've got one in the financial services marketing, for lack of a better term, industry. And I'm using it to interview the CEOs of what are called insurance marketing organizations, or IMOs. And because they do marketing for thousands or tens of thousands of financial advisors at once. The advisors are their clients. Those are the advisors I want to market for. So it's funny, I did an interview last week with the CEO of an IMO that I had no relationship with. It was totally cold. And at the end of the interview, he's like, I didn't get to hear about you. I want to talk about you. And I hadn't even asked yet because I wouldn't, because our follow-up process hasn't happened yet. And then he calls me the next day and goes, you know what? I'm going to an industry conference. I'm a keynote speaker. Can I mention you in my speech? And I'm like, we haven't even done anything together yet, except I interviewed him. And he's already going to tell like 3,000 insurance industry CEOs in his speech. He wants to add in slides about, hey, I just saw the coolest thing ever and you guys should all do it. Like, I haven't even asked you to be an affiliate yet. Perfect. So I've done it. I have one in the private equity industry, which I have no street cred in whatsoever, just because I wanted to get into bigger companies. I want companies that can say, oh, sure, we can give you a multi-million-dollar contract.
Right.
So I would say pick a niche, start building that wish list. If you want, we're happy to help you with it, but start building that wish list so that you can reach out to them to be on your show. Congratulations, you're now a podcast host. And if you were starting an agency from scratch, I would do exactly the same thing. You'd have to pick a niche you want to go after. in not only can you interview your ideal influencers and your referral sources, you can interview your ideal clients.
Right.
So I do it all the time. If we air 5 shows a week, at least one of those is me interviewing someone, not just whose referrals I want, but whose business I want.
Mm-hmm.
And our close rate on turning guests into clients is incredibly high because they're so warm and fuzzy towards us because we're interviewing them first and promoting them first. And when I started my show, it was way before Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank was a part of it. I started it myself, and my first 15 episodes, we made over $100,000, and I had like 2 employees, and it was back in the beginning.
Yeah. So it's obviously worth it for marketers, and I think you're touching also on 2 very important subjects that also come all the time in the podcast, which is the differentiation in the agency market, which is, it's very needed. It's very hard because everybody are selling SEO, everybody are selling PPC, everybody are selling Facebook advertising. What's the difference? Nobody understands. And it's very hard to differentiate yourself. And now you come and you say, 1, I'm niched, which is, by the way, the advice that also Neil Patel gave a week ago. He says, go niche not because it's just easier on the operation, but because niche makes you different. You can say, I'm so good at this. I'm the best at financial advisor because I did I already helped like 20 financial advisors. And then you come and say, you add on top of it, I also have a podcast in that niche. I'm creating another layer of social proof, another layer of branding around me, in addition to getting clients and getting influential points, which I think is critical today, right, Seth? The branding.
Absolutely. And the fact that you can interview pseudo celebrities in your niche, that gives you so much more credibility, even if you're approaching a quote unquote regular prospect. So if you've interviewed Neil Patel, you've had Matt Bachek, you've had some of the household name gurus in the marketing space on your show, even if you didn't have all the street cred you had and all the history and umbrella and all of that, you could, if you were going to a regular business owner or a regular agency owner and saying, I can help you, and you could say, look at who I'm associated with and hold up that list. Nobody else can do that. It blows any other firm out of the water.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. That's super important, guys. So that's the agencies, right? So we understand how it works for agencies. We understand why it's important for branding and differentiation. We can do the same thing for clients, right? It works the same. Whether it's an agency or financial advisor, they're benefiting from the same thing. Can you take us a little bit into, okay, let's say agencies want to help their clients doing podcasts. And by the way, Seth also provide that service, guys. I'm kind of, BTWing and,
Thank you for the shameless promotion.
This podcast is brought to you by Umbrella. Have an agency? Check out umbrellaus.com to grow it today.
Yes. Look, you're a friend, and I'm using the service, and I don't mind saying it's awesome. But even if they wanted to do it by themselves, let's say for a second, how would they go about it? How would they go to a client and suggest for them to do that? And is it financially interesting for them instead of doing SEO, PPC? Or is it needed?
So yeah, they could absolutely offer it to their clients. We have a number, as you know, we have a number of agencies, both part of your program and others that do that. So yes, if you think about how it works for you, it works for a business owner the same way, because that's where we started, serving the business owners of financial advisors, and now we serve dozens and dozens of different industries doing the same model. So you've got to think about, you mentioned it, the return on investment. Is it cost effective? So if I was a local pizzeria selling $2 slices of pizza, I probably wouldn't become a Dream 50 client because I would just have to sell a ridiculous amount of pizza to pay for it.
Yeah.
Now, so the ideal client, the ideal end user business owner client for this is high ticket. So they have to have a decent transaction value. So that might be a chiropractor who isn't doing insurance, like they're doing a $5,000 care plan, or they might be a financial advisor or an attorney or somebody who has the potential that I want them thinking, even if they're paying us full price to do this, I want to be able to say on that enrollment conversation, hey, you're a personal injury attorney, your average case is worth a couple $100,000. I get you one in a year and you made 10x on your money.
Yeah.
The goal is to get you referrals every single week, but all I got to do is get one to make you happy. Then their expectations are lower than if they were thinking you got to sell me 500 pieces of pizza a week. So I would want them to be preferred like white collar, high ticket, high transaction value. It doesn't have to be $5,000, doesn't have to be $100,000. It could be $1,000. It just needs to be. And it also depends on what you charge for the service. I mean, we're completely turnkey, done for you. All they have to do is show up on Zoom and do an interview, and we do everything else. So it's not cheap. If you were an agency owner looking to build this system yourself, I would say, good God, why? Just piggyback, white label ours, like you do. But if they wanted to build it themselves, they could. It took me years of trial and error and a lot of expensive mistakes, but you could figure it out. And then you could charge less and offer it to a wider array of industries. But yes, it absolutely works as something to sell your business owner clients, especially since nobody else is doing it because we invented the process.
That's awesome. And I think, and again, I think it's a very needed service. And I want to ask you, where do you think it's going to evolve? Meaning right now, we're talking about podcasts. Like you said, back in the day, it wasn't a podcast. It was a different structure plus a book. 5-10 years from now, do you already see the future, or is it too soon?
I can see it sooner than that. I can't see 10 years out would be, because God knows what networks are going to, I mean, there's going to be a new social network tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
I think we're always improving the service. So we made our service is all about the 50 profitable relationships. That's the whole point. And we tell people on the webinar or in an enrollment conversation, I don't care if those 50 people are the only downloads you ever get. However, it doesn't matter how many times I say that, our clients still want the vanity metric of downloads. They want to be able to say, I have listeners beyond these 50 people. So we had to create a podcast advertising service that now moves the needle and gets them numbers. They're still not going to be Joe Rogan. They're not going to get millions, but 30,000, it's funny. The first person to start, quote unquote, nagging me about downloads is my wife. We start because she's a client of ours. She has a parenting and marriage podcast. And she has no product to sell. She has no service to sell. She's also mostly a stay-at-home mom and a blogger. And I couldn't get her to offer a course or a coaching program or anything like that because she's too busy with the kids. So I'm like, well, we can have the show and have your book and have these relationships, but you don't have a way to really monetize them if you won't let me sell something. She said, I don't care. Just get me downloads. And we had this fight at least 10 times in my house until I finally said, fine, screw it. I'll come up with a way to get you downloads to shut you up and make you happy. And it started working for her. She was the guinea pig. And then I have other clients who said, ooh, I want downloads too. And I said, well, we now have a solution for that. We now have marketing that works. And we will keep iterating. We're coming up with now ways to take the content and turn it into other things, other lead generation tools that would drive even more revenue and even more leads to our clients. So can I tell you what it looks like in 10 years? No, but I can tell you there will always be more moving parts added and it will always keep getting better. Will the podcast format go away in 10 years? I don't know, but we started before it existed. If it goes away, we still have the interviews. We'll find another way to use them. I think if anything, we will just keep adding more parts more pieces to the puzzle to make it keep working better.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's always something new. So I also want to ask you, you've spoken about how Netflix and YouTube influence your web content, even if it's not video. What do you mean by that when you take it into B2B? Okay,
so Netflix is one of my favorite companies to watch because they're absolutely brilliant at this. And they have an algorithm that tracks when you watch, not just what shows you watch, but when you drop off, like when you stop watching an episode. And they figured out, and I won't quote it right, but they figured out there's a certain first X number of minutes in every episode of any show, and it's different for dramas versus comedies, where they know they've got 18 minutes or whatever, 8 minutes or whatever it is to get you hooked to keep watching. So they've changed the way they produce original content based on that, and change the way their screenwriters write, going, you have to put the hooks in the really, I mean, that's why now you see so many shows, whether it's Breaking Bad did it start, or Better Call Saul, where they do a flash forward and the rest of the show is a flashback to keep you watching to see what happens. And they do it sometimes now at the beginning of a season. They show you a sneak peek of the conflict from the end, and now you got to stay for the whole season to find out what happens. So I started applying that to our marketing and saying, if we're doing a webinar, we change the way we produce and write webinars. We change the way we do live video on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, whatever. And we realized we had to change the way, because now people are starting to get used to this, right? When people attend an online event, even B2B, especially B2B, they're used to seeing television.
Yeah.
So we got to, if we're doing a webinar, we now do like 200 slides in an hour. Like the slides are moving every 2 seconds because we got software that lets us watch people watch the webinar. And we saw if we stuck on any slide longer than a minute or two, people dropped off. They started checking Facebook, they check email, they leave. So you got to keep the slides moving so they have to visually pay attention. And we had to put the hooks in like because normally the first 5 minutes would have all been intro. And we had to change it. And we had to tease some content coming up to make sure they actually stuck around and watched and didn't drop off. So again, all learned from applying Netflix, trying to get people hooked on binge watching their shows.
I love it. I love it. That's a brilliant approach. By the way, I'm going to add a note to myself as well to look at my webinars and see if we need to change them. So let's talk for a second about the new coming up $1 Million Agency report.
Yes.
That, you have a fantastic approach. Correct me if I'm wrong, where you guarantee an agency will generate with you another $1 million. It's got to have a guarantee, right? Or am I wrong?
Yes. No. You're absolutely right. That is
okay.
That is our $1 Million Agency program. And we guarantee we will deliver another. So you could already have $1 million. You could have 10 million. We guarantee, or you could have zero. You probably couldn't afford it if you have zero. We guarantee we will deliver another $1 million in new revenue in 12 months.
Okay, hold on. I bet the jaws are falling right now for people hearing that. They're falling for two reasons. One, they're falling probably because agency owners are saying, hey, this guy's going to guarantee me $1 million. How much will that cost? And second, is he insane? Is he going to guarantee $1 million? Like, what is it, like a real game?
And you forgot the third drop, which is they don't believe me. They think it's too good to be true and it's full of crap. It's so funny when my editors were editing the ebook, the manuscript that I wrote. They came to me and said, you shouldn't say X, Y, and Z. I'm like, why not? People aren't going to believe you. We don't believe you. I'm like, I don't pay you to believe me. I'm paying you to fix my crappy spelling and grammar when I wrote it. So yes, it's true. Yes, we'll guarantee it. And we'll put our money where our mouth is. All I want is 10 at the time of this recording, I want 10% of the $1 million. But you're not going to give it to me till we get you that money. So you would make, I'm not going to do the sales pitch here, but you would make a small deposit and then you're going to pay me the rest of that 10% off of sales we generate. So you're going to put a little bit of skin in the game and then you're going to pay the rest, basically commission on sales we generate. So I'm removing the risk as much as we possibly can. Yeah. And this Dream 50 program we've alluded to is part of that process. Also, there's a lead generation and marketing funnel that gets built. There's a webinar that gets written, a sales pitch that gets written. There's traffic that gets driven. There is, and most importantly, there's a fulfillment system built, customized for that agency to deliver their services, that $1 million of revenue, whatever they're getting hired for. We build them the system so their staff can deliver those services without them.
So what is the report about? Is that how you can do it yourself kind of report? Or?
The report is literally outlining the process. It's, hey, these are the 3 secrets to adding $1 million in revenue in the next 12 months. And of course, there is a mention of, hey, if you want us to do it for you, here's how it works. But the bulk of it is education. The bulk of it is, here's how you can do this. Here's the 3 systems you need. Here's how you can build them. Follow the paint by numbers, follow the process. Or if you want to have us do all the work, obviously you can, and we'll put our money where our mouth is.
Okay. That's very interesting. Where can they download that report?
Right now you can't, it's not out yet. We're kind of sneak peeking it here. So if they want to shoot me an email at Seth at marketdominationprogram.com and tell me, hey, I want the $1 Million Agency report, I am happy to send it to them as soon as we put it out.
Awesome. So can you repeat the email again, just for all the listeners?
Yes. Seth at marketdominationprogram.com.
Awesome. So Seth, the final section that we do in every webinar, in every podcast, is we have a rapid Q&A. And there are a few questions. The questions are in no way edgy, but if you feel uncomfortable with any of them, you can just say pass, okay?
Okay, fire away.
So did you get along with your parents growing up?
Maybe. Yes. How long an answer do you want?
Just yes or no.
Yes.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Do you have a pet?
3.
I know you have kids, right?
3.
How old were you when your first kid was born?
Max is 14, so I was 30.
When do you wake up?
6 a.m. Eastern time.
When do you go to bed?
10 or 11 p.m.
Eastern?
Yes.
Ideal vacation?
Disney or Universal?
Are you a man of faith?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Seth. You've been amazing. Thank you for answering all the questions. Thank you for highlighting the specific problem that I think agencies and their clients today have with all the content and all the competition around. You need to create differentiation and you need to create new ways to reach into clients. And I think the podcast option does both, the podcast and the book. And thank you very much. And guys, you can also go to growyourown.com, growyourown.com, and get Seth's ebook that kind of outlines how you build a cult for yourself. And I want you to check out, because this guy knows exactly what he's talking about. He's done it for so many businesses, so many agencies, so many non-agencies businesses, of actually creating a system for them to differentiate themselves in the market and reach out to new clients in a very organic way, by the way, with no paid media. So thank you for everything that you do, Seth.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you for tuning into another episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Your host has been Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com.